Hello, I'm Marian Arrowsmith, and welcome to our show. Today, our guests are Rose Vance and Janice Boyce. Rose and Janice are both retired educators from St. Tammany. They both taught at Mandeville Elementary School, and Rose, I believe you went on and became principal of the school, and Janice, you became the first RHT there. So we're looking forward to some great stories today. Rose, I think you were the first teachers at Mandeville Elementary. Mm-hmm. What was it like, and when was that?
Well, it was in '66, and the school was brand new, and it was one wing, no gym, and it was surrounded with red clay, no shrubbery or anything. And but we did have a nice playground with trees, and that was a big plus.
How many teachers were there then?
I was trying to think. I think it's there were around 9.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Right.
Do you remember how many students you had by any chance? About?
Janice and I were trying to figure it out. I don't know, maybe 350 or something like that, maybe.
Yeah. And I
don't know exactly.
I think when it split the first time, after they'd moved kindergarten, it was around, what, 1,500, 1,200, 1,500?
I don't know if it was that.
Yeah.
It was a lot.
That was a good many.
Oh, yeah, too many. That's why you got them. And before Mandeville Elementary, there was one public school, which was the high school at that time, but it was grades 1 through 12 until Mandeville Elementary was the first one that was built after then. And
what grades were there when you started?
Okay, we had grades 1 through 4. There was no kindergarten in the parish. So we had 1 through 4. Then they added kindergarten, and we had to move 4th grade out, so it was K through 3. Then kindergarten had to be moved out because of the growth, and so it was made into 1 to 3, which that's what it is now.
And it's remained. Who was the principal back then?
Jimmy Hune was the principal for 2 years, and then Bill Ferrer was principal from then on until he retired in, I think, '87. And then I was principal for 3 years before I retired.
But you were assistant principal.
Right, yeah.
For quite a number of years.
Right, even before I got paid for it.
Oh, is that right?
Right.
So how did that work?
Well, okay, I mean, I was still in the classroom, and when the principals had to go out of town or do some meeting or something, they left me in charge if something came up.
Janice, you were the first RHT, resource helping teacher.
Yes.
Tell our audience what a resource helping teacher was back then. And
Well, it was a brand new position in the parish. All the schools had an RHT, and I think it depended on the school that you were in and what your job would be. I took it a little bit toward the creativity so that I could maybe enrich some of the classrooms and that sort of thing. That was kind of my big thrust.
which I think when it started, that's what the resource
I
helping
think so
teacher's
too.
job was
It
to do, to
evolved
help the
into other
classroom
things,
teachers.
but I think that's what it was when it started.
And before that, you were teaching at Mandeville
I
Elementary.
did.
Tell us about that.
Well, when I arrived on the scene, it was 1977, and we weren't small anymore. We were very large. In fact, the 4th grade was still there, and when Mr. Ferrer hired me, there was no classroom. So we had a media room on the 3rd grade wing, and he put me in the middle of the media room with petitions all around. Well, the petitions were about this far off the floor. So every once in a while I was busy teaching, I'd see a head that would, you know, come up from the underside of the petition to see what was going on in there. So we didn't stay there too long, maybe 6 weeks, and then we got a portable. So then I was in a portable 1 year, and then 4th grade moved, and I got a classroom. So, but I remember when we first moved over to St. Tammany, it was '71, and I had come from Jefferson, from Metairie, where they had all the growth and all the new schools, and you know. And then I have to say I was shocked when I rode by the Mandeville Elementary School. It was just this one little school. I mean, it was just so strange, you know. But it was fun. It was a wonderful school.
We were a close-knit group.
Well, really. And I remember the first PTA meeting, I was sitting by Bill Ferrer, and I said, I don't think I'm going to like this school. And he said, why? And I said, well, a little girl in my class today asked me, she said, Mrs. Boyce, why do you dress so young when you're so old? I was 39. You think that hasn't stayed with me? They never know when they say something, how it's going to.
You know, at that age, 15 or 17 is
well,
old.
I think her
so.
mother was
They're so
real
funny.
young, you know. But still, you know, kind of cuts.
But you did stay.
Oh, yes. I stayed the rest of
we
my...
wouldn't let her leave.
Well, you all taught third grade together.
Yes, we did, for a while.
And you did some pretty creative things in your classroom. If
Oh,
I
yes, she
remember.
always did.
Oh,
Share some of those with us.
I think if I had to say my main contribution, it would have been children's literature and maybe the art, because those were the two things that I really liked. And I do think Rose and I both would read to the children every day, mostly after lunch, a novel, or in the third grade you could do that, and they loved it. And they followed along in their books, and I think that was a great, you know, incentive to learn to read. And by the time I finished the novel, everybody practically had a book. So that was fun. And then we did a lot of the artistic things to go with it. Probably the thing that I enjoyed the most and was just so much fun was this Mother Goose Gazette. And this was based on children's literature. And it was a newspaper. And we had a great big one. It was about like this, and where everything was written in. And I luckily had a wonderful, wonderful parent volunteer. Her name was Cindy Calhoun, and she was a former teacher in Shreveport. And so she copied all that, and she decided that every child in the class should have a copy of this. So she sold some ads, and we raised the money, or she raised the money, and we got this. But this newspaper has a front page with bylines, and it has a society page, well, the Empress Procession, you know, and it had lots of ads like the bakery and the shoes. It has real estate, the house that looks like a shoe for the old woman. And it had one of the best ones was the advice column. They talked about writing, let's see.
Read.
Shall I read one? Okay, let me see.
And these were all based on books
Books
that they've read.
Right.
And it was all done by students.
They're all done by third grade students, yeah. And I also had
That's wonderful.
at a time had a student teacher. Rose and I both had student teachers, and that was a big help too. Let's see if I can find her. Oh yeah, here's one. The Ugly Duckling. You know, I'm not ugly anymore, and don't you know that I have little ducklings, and one of them is very ugly, so I know he's going to turn out okay too. I mean, just wonderful imaginations, you know. Anyway, that was just a great time, and the staff is listing all the children who did it, and they even voted on their top book. The favorite book, the very favorite, was Super Fudge, and the second one was Otis Spofford, Charlotte's Web, Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing, and Dear Mr. Henshaw.
I was looking over the names of the students who were in your room that year. It looks like quite a large number of students.
It was a big class.
And I saw one of the students was Ellen Quinn, whose sister, Casey Quinn Gleason, is now one of our administrators here in the parish.
It was a lot of fun. Here's the neighborhood garage sale. A long blonde wig asked for Rapunzel. Anyway, that was fun.
And then you did a lot with writing, didn't you? With
we did.
Young Authors Tea.
Actually, that I had taught at another school, and that idea was not an original idea. It came from Rochelle Fisher in the other school. Teachers are real good about borrowing other teachers' ideas, which is fine.
Yeah.
And so we prepared little books. They wrote their stories and they illustrated them. and then we had a tea where they invited their parents, and they autographed the books for their parents and read them.
Dressed
Yeah,
apart.
and dressed like, you know, some of them dressed like their little characters and everything. So
And I think
it was
you have
fun.
a picture of
I do. It's a newspaper, and actually, it's one of the banks in town sent this picture to me.
Well, that's nice. First National Bank, you were cut out to be remembered, and they
Yeah,
cut it out.
that was a
Isn't
nice thing for them to do.
That is a nice thing to do.
Yeah.
Very nice. And I think now a lot of our schools do what they call, there's a program, written and illustrated, and they have, sometimes the teachers do it, sometimes they have parent volunteers that
Yeah.
come in and do written and illustrated, and
Right.
then end with a writer's tea.
Right.
So
Right.
that's continued to go
It
on
does.
in many of our schools. It's a wonderful program.
Another thing that we did this was when I was an arch tea, and it was so adorable. It was Earth Week, and I talked, I guess it was first grade, I can't remember, I can only remember one first grade teacher doing this, but she did it was supposed to be a fashion show, and it was recyclable things, and so she made all these things out of newspaper. And she made a bridal gown out of the newspaper, and I guess some sort of paper for the veil and everything. And we had some sort of runway, it seems like.
Yeah.
I was the narrator, and the children would go and turn around, you know, just like a model, and come back. And so the next year I said, oh, let's do the fashion show again. And they said, no way, it was way too much work. So that was just a one-time thing, but it was fun.
And something you remember.
Yeah.
Rose, what are some of the memories you have of teaching at Mandeville Elementary?
It was a great experience to be there. I mean, we had wonderful leadership under both principals before me, and we had great parents, and of course great students. And they traveled. We had a lot of people moving in, as you know, and the kids had traveled and lived in different states, so we got a lot of good ideas from the parents who volunteered in the school, and we had a great volunteer group. I mean, they were there all the time. One of the mothers was big pregnant, and the next thing you knew, she was bringing this tiny baby in a stroller. She didn't miss a beat. But they were very dedicated, and we couldn't have done without them, I don't believe.
Well, we had talked briefly earlier about how when we split the community and Woodlake opened up, and I was fortunate enough to get that job as principal. And I remember shortly after being at a party at your house, it was Mardi Gras, I think it was one of the Eve parade or
Yeah, it was
one of the
Mardi Gras.
parades. And somebody said to you, oh, so she's your competition. And you quickly said, oh, we don't compete, we work together. And I think that really made such an impression on me, and I still remember it. And you've all talked already about how you shared within your school, and so Mandeville just became a bigger picture of that, where all of the schools, and they continue to do that. I mean, that's one of the things about the Mandeville schools. We used to have an articulation meeting with all the principals once a month, and they continue to work together. But that meant so much to me to get that support right away from you.
Yeah.
So, and you became principal shortly after that. That was right when Bill Ferrer retired at the end of that year.
And I was
so
3 years.
we really got to be partners then.
You really did.
Right.
But
And she was a great principal.
Yes, she was.
She was.
Okay.
Mandeville Elementary has always had a wonderful reputation, always done very well academically, and
know.
continues to do that. What do you think?
We had so many old people at that time, during that time, and from Oklahoma and Texas, so many from Texas, and they wanted to send their children to Mandeville Elementary because they had heard, so they lived over here so they could send their children. They did not want to send them to the New Orleans schools, which I don't really know that much. Hearsay is all I know about that. But
that's what made the community grow.
That's what really, and
Right.
grow in the right direction. It really was. It was very important.
And of course, after Katrina, we saw how important the schools were, because it was, as soon as the schools got back up, people came back.
Yeah, right.
So schools play a very important role
Absolutely.
in our community and in our society.
Right.
So,
I had never been to London before, and I went over one summer to visit a friend there, and I was in the airport, I think it was Gatwick, and I heard someone say, "Hi, Mrs. Boyce." Who would think that one of your students, or I don't think she was one of mine, but she had gone to our school, you know, you'd ever run into them at an airport in London, you know.
They're everywhere.
They're everywhere.
Right.
And some of the things are funny. I know this happened to you, but like going to the grocery store, you know, you'd see a child, especially the little ones, and they kind of hide behind their mother like, you know, she goes to the grocery store, you know, she has a life outside of school. And one little girl or boy, I can't remember, leaned out of the car and was waving, "Hi, Miss Dempsey," to me.
Ms. Dempsey was another teacher there.
Yes,
Right.
Miss Dempsey was a speech therapist.
Uh-huh.
And that's when I was in RHT, so we were both in the halls running around, you know.
So you could understand why they'd get a little bit confused.
A little confused.
Well,
yeah.
you could see them in the grocery store after school with their parents, and it was like they had not seen you in years, that they'd run up and speak to you and hug you. And we had just been in school together.
Well, you probably still see some of your students who are now grown
Oh,
or have
yeah.
children or of their own. It's nice to have them still speak to
Yeah.
you.
Right.
I do. I saw Barrett McGuire and his wife Jill Lane McGuire and their new baby one day at the grocery store, so that was fun. And then there was another little girl that I don't know where she was working, but I said, "I taught you in first grade." And she said, "You did?" And I said, "Yes, don't you remember?" And she said, "No, but I'll ask my mother. She knows all my teachers." So you're not always memorable.
Well, Barrett McGuire's mother, I know, did a lot of volunteering.
She did.
Sue McGuire.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Well, she now has grandchildren in our schools, and so
I'm
she's
sure so.
still volunteering
Yeah.
in our schools, which is great.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's a lot of fun times. It really was.
Yes, good memories.
what are some other stories you all remember about teaching at Mandeville Elementary? I know Bill Ferrer was such a big part of that school for so many
Oh,
years.
yeah.
You've got to have some funny stories about him.
Well, he had
that we can tell.
He had a song for everybody,
That's right.
you know.
And he knew
Mine
our-
was Rose, Rose, I love you.
and,
But and some of the kids, they would be so embarrassed, and others would just, oh, he's singing to me.
they
and
loved him.
Remember the names? He was so good at
And
that.
that, you know, that was over 700 people, and
Yeah.
he knew a lot of the names and knew
Yeah.
a lot about them. He really did. But he always wore the same outfit for the first PTA meeting, and it was white pants, I'd say almost yellow pants by the time, and a jacket, a little sport coat that was red and white checked. And so when Bill Ferrer retired, I was RHT then, and we had a play. And I asked Mary Ferrer if she could find his jacket, and she did. We got the biggest third grader we could find, and he wore the jacket for the little skit, and it brought the house down because everyone recognized that jacket.
And I'm sure Bill loved it.
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh, he did.
He did. Yeah, he was a mess.
Yeah,
Yeah, he really was.
I learned a lot from him, and he was always so supportive.
Always happy and upbeat.
Yeah.
Wonderful
Really,
man.
really good. Oh, one of the things that I think all the teachers do or try to do is to build the children's self-esteem. And I think all of these extra projects that we do, that's one thing that helps. And then I just think it was almost required, but it was certainly suggested that each class do something on the stage and have the parents. And many times the classes would just do one production with all the classes in it, and sometimes it'd just be one single class. And I think that really did help. And there were some darling productions. Of course,
And it's good for students to get up on the stage.
it is. And, you know, all those things, they will remember that.
Yes. You did a lot of things as RHT. I think you brought a few things here. You want to share some of those with us that you did?
Well,
Had the students do, I guess.
yeah, Well, we were.
And anything from that paper is.
Yeah, the paper. Well, I shared that, but this was Fontainebleau State Park, and third grade always studied Louisiana. Right.
Right.
And so we took the third graders to the park, and they had their sketch pads with them, and they were to draw pictures of some of the buildings that still remained. And so we made a calendar out of it with their pictures, just choosing, you know, the most appropriate, and had a calendar printed, and I think we tried to sell them for $1 or so. We always had to sell something.
Well, there's some wonderful pictures in here.
Really?
And,
really
signed
very
by the
good
students,
for
yes.
for the third grade
That one
students.
is good.
a lot of these are still at the park. I was at the
That's
park
right.
yesterday, and the sugar mill's still crumbling,
That's
but
right.
it's still there.
But yeah, and
The
those
big
beautiful
oak
trees.
trees.
Yeah, that was great. And then this was when Walk Across America. Everybody was talking about walking across America. Well, Mandeville Elementary walked across. This was the whole school. This was when I was in Arch too, and they all drew pictures of feet, and
For the states.
for each state. And so it's a coloring book, and we sold these too. I think we had a lot left over. By that time, they were kind of out of the coloring book. But anyway, it was the feet are just so cute and
those again
so different. You know,
Were drawn by the students.
first, second, and third grade. Yeah, and they are just hysterical.
What did they put for Louisiana?
Well, let's see.
I asked what they put for Mississippi.
There we go.
Oh, it's one of the cutest ones. Isn't
That's
that
precious.
cute? I love their little legs. They're so cute.
Yeah, some are skinny and.
Some fat.
What about the curriculum back when Mandeville Elementary started? What changes over the years did you see, Rose? Did anything major change that you can think of? I know today it's all online, which certainly is a big change, but
Yeah.
no, technology was very different
Oh.
in '66 when you started
Yeah.
than it is in 2011.
And even in '77. I
Yes.
mean, you know, yeah. I would have a lot of trouble. Rose and I would have trouble today with all the
Right.
technology. That's not our forte. But most of the children all have their own computers, and they know so much from that.
Oh, I know. My grandchildren from 2 to 9, the 2-year-old, amazing. And then the 6-year-old, my daughter was trying to show me something on that they had recorded, and she couldn't get it turned on. And Hannah went, I can do it. And she did all the right buttons and got
And it came right up.
it right.
Rose, you still keep in touch with some of your students, don't you? Have at least one you shared with me still calls you?
Yeah, Senorita. And she was so bad that she spent a lot of time in the office. And for a time, they sent her every recess to sit in the office, which was the last thing she should do. She should be out running and playing. So I tried to go out as many recesses as I could. And
All of them.
yeah, pretty much. And but I started taking Senorita out with me, and she'd walk right beside me, skip along, hold my hand. She loved it. It was punishment. I mean, it's like she can't sit here in the office.
Well,
every
of course, what
recess.
we know today, she wasn't being bad. She probably just was having problems sitting still, and that's exactly what she needed,
Yeah.
was to be out.
But she turned out real well. She calls me, and she called me last week, and when she ended up, we got off the phone, she said, let's go out to lunch sometime.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
And she has a family of her own.
Right. She's expecting her 9th.
Oh, my goodness.
They're in Mandeville Elementary too.
So she's helping to keep our
Yeah,
community
right,
populated.
right.
Well, that's great.
right.
Yeah.
Anything else that you would like to share that we haven't talked about?
We did a wonderful, this was right after you left, Rose. I think the museum in New Orleans had a Monet exhibit, and the children went over just third grade, I believe, and came back and did a whole entire hall on Monet, and with the different disciplines, math, reading, language, art, all the things on the pictures, and it was quite something.
So the discipline-based arts in there. And that's
was-
when Laura Mitchell.
That was when Laura Mitchell was principal.
principal,
Yeah,
right
we even
after
had,
you.
I helped her pull down grapevines where I think there's a bank there now. Had to put up grapevines going down the hall. It was
I
something.
remember that display.
Yeah,
it
it
was
was quite something.
quite impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, the teachers always displayed what they had done, and it's amazing.
Who were some of the teachers that were there when you started, the earlier teachers?
Jean Dale Boggs, Doris Muse.
Doris Muse taught right next to me, and she taught second grade, and I want to tell you, she gave it her all. The bell rang about 3:10 or something. At 3 o'clock, I could hear the record player going, and they were singing, and where most of us were by that time. And you didn't hear much from her room as far as noise.
If you had some words of advice that you would give to beginning teachers or new administrators or somebody considering going into the field of education, what would you tell them?
One thing would be, think about the beginning, set your pace, don't start anything you can't keep up, and no matter what you're doing, keep that in mind. That I think be consistent.
And I think you have to be flexible.
Oh yeah.
If you're not going to complete whatever it is that's written on your lesson plan, don't worry about it. Spend a little more time really thinking about the children and talking to the children. I can think back that there were times that I could have spent a little more time. Time is a big thing. And
So you're saying build relationships, good relationships.
yeah, and
Oh,
it's like all the creative writing that we did. Well, the best way for creative writing is to be able to talk to the child one-on-one after they've written their story. And instead of just red marks and stuff. Of course, that takes so much time, but
that's how they learn.
that's how they learn. So you have to have a lot of patience, and I think you have to really love children. I think your personality comes out in the classroom, don't you think?
Right, you can tell on a rainy day when they would have to stay in, and I would be at my desk grading papers or I was in there anyway, and they'd get in the corner and play school, and you could hear yourself.
That's so true. That's so true.
Yeah, and you don't realize I was wearing my hair longer then, and I remember one little girl walking beside me going to the cafeteria, and she said, "How do you make your hair do that?" I don't remember what it was doing, but I wanted to tell her, I said, "I don't know, it just does that on its own," but
they want to
they notice
imitate you.
everything,
Yes.
so.
And of course you want them to be observant. It's one of the things you try to
I
do.
always had asked the class to think about what they wanted to be when they grew up, and write something down. But one little girl, all the years I taught, one little girl said she wanted to be a mother.
That's great.
A lot of them wanted to be teachers. A lot of
Yeah,
little girls
right.
wanted to be teachers.
If they liked you, they wanted to be a teacher.
Which we want them to grow up, little girls and little boys, to be teachers.
I
and good
remember
teachers.
I was teaching at another school. This was across the lake, and our playground had been cemented or asphalt, and it was not a good idea. But I was on duty, and at Jefferson Parish at that time, you did not wear slacks, you wore dresses. And I remember I had on a navy blue dress and navy blue stockings, and I must have been on playground duty. I was outside, and some little hefty rounded the corner and knocked me down and put a big hole right here in the stocking. Well, I lived across the lake. There was not a thing I could do. So they painted it up with some Mercure Calm and all that. The rest of the day, all the children could look at was my knee. I never got a face.
That's when you need one of those little lap blankets.
Yes. They were just fascinated. You know, the teachers, I guess, have bloody knees and things.
You're human.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
couldn't identify with that.
Well, I think we're out of time, so I want to thank you both for coming today.
Thank you for having us.
We enjoyed it. It was fun to bring up these memories.
Good. That's our show for today. I want to offer special thanks to our guests, Janice Boyce and Rose Vance, for sharing some great stories with us as we learn more about St. Tammany